Hello and welcome back to Art History Week. Today we are talking about one of my favorite artists. Her name is Georgia Okeeffe. Have you ever heard of her? Is your name Georgia? I have a friend named Georgia. So, she is an artist who loved nature. Let's look at one of her paintings. Look at that. It's of leaves. Yeah, here's a beautiful book where you can see what she looks like while she's painting. What do you notice? Yeah, things are really, really big, really close up. I'm gonna even show you one on my iPad. Really cool. What's interesting about Georgia Okeeffe is that she was the queen of bleeding off the page. So imagine that she was alive just around the time when a camera became really popular. And that's actually true. That's exactly right. Her husband, Alfred Stieglitz, he was actually a photographer. I want you to think about a camera. Now that's just tough, but I want you to think about a camera and one of the parts of the camera she was most interested in. So if she loved to zoom in, that's right, the zoom. Today we're gonna make our own flowers, or you could do a leaf or a shell or something that's really up close. I'm gonna do a flower and I'm gonna try to just sort of make a bumpy circle. And I'm gonna play a little bit. Now, as I play, I am going to also double my lines. And I'm going to think about Georgia Okeeffe and her love of almost acting like she's a bug inside. I think I'm gonna use that letter V again to create a flower. Now, if you have a flower or even a pretend flower in your house, you could observe it and look closely and draw what you see. Or you could make a flower from your mind. I think this time I'm going to use the letter U. And I'm going to repeat. What's going to happen is I start to get this really cool texture. Today I'm going to divide my paper, because I feel like it, into warms and cools. So notice I am using purple. I've been very purpley with you, but maybe you want to start with another color. I'm going to switch colors because you know I love to do that. And I'm going to switch to blue. Now with these purples and blues, I'm using the cool colors. I'm still not really zooming in. I'm really just creating layers. Now, one thing I like to say when I'm creating petals is I notice they're really unpredictable. They're not perfect. See how this one is going this way and that one's going that way and this one's gonna go whoop. The idea is that you don't want them to be so perfect, schmurfect. I don't do perfect. You want them to be unpredictable. Like, where is it gonna go next? I'm gonna switch to a darker blue. And this time I'm gonna go right off the page, bleeding off the page. In fact, in my classroom, we have that letter alphabet I talk about. The letter B is for bleeding, and it has a picture with Georgia Okeeffe's flowers. So beautiful. Oop, better move my hand. Now you can use any materials today. I started with Sharpie so that you could see. And we're gonna circle back to some stuff we've talked about. I think I'm actually gonna turn it. Yeah, I think I like it this way. Now I could go in and I could show off how much I know how to shade. Remember, press hard, soft. Whisper. Or I could paint. Let's talk about brush strokes. Today we're gonna talk about brush strokes. So I'm going to start, remember you can even do this with marker. I'm gonna start with a sweep. And as I sweep, I'm wiggling around. And maybe I want to do something a little different in the middle. Maybe I want to do short strokes. Still sweeps. Those are still sweeps. I could even bump those. I don't have to stay in the lines because the petals are all sort of the same, okay? So that's a sweep. But we haven't really talked about this idea of taking your brush and getting it kind of dry. So for me, I have another piece of paper underneath here, You might want to use even a newspaper or a sponge or a paper towel and get your brush really dry. Now, as I get it really dry, I'm going to go into some wet paint and I'm going to do just kind of like the marker thing we talked about, some feathering. See how it changes the texture a little bit? Or maybe I want to do a stomp, but with dry. It's kind of interesting. Okay, friends? So there are lots of ways, oh, you could even just stamp. What a beautiful texture. Now what I like to do is I like to create a base color and then I like to glaze on top and create that texture. What do I mean? Well, I made one for you that's already finished. So you can see I divided my warms and my cools. Here are the warms. Oh, you can't even see, hold on. So there's red, there's orange, and they're supposed to be yellow. We'll take this one and we'll say this is yellow. It's pretty yellowy, right? So those are the warms. I made my flower really warm. And I added that dry brush texture in the middle. You can see it almost looks kind of like a fuzzy texture. So I'm gonna keep going with that. And I'm actually going to, because it's dry and I did it yesterday, I'm going to go on top. Yours will probably dry pretty quickly. And you can see that I'm adding a different texture on top. We've talked about how it's really hard to know when you're finished. That's always true. No matter who you are as an artist, that's always true. Because you could always go back on top. Ooh, see how I'm adding dry brush texture? It's really neat. So that's a really interesting way to do things. And if I even want to go back in the middle, that can be really fun. Let's go back to this one. So if these are my cool colors, then I would just paint my flower, the positive space we call that, with cool. But now I sort of have to decide, wait a second, where are my background spaces? Because notice how in this one, it pops off the page, right? So that's something Georgia Okeeffe did too. It was like, who's the star of this picture? The flower, or the leaf, or the shell. Yeah, Georgia Okeeffe is a really interesting person. So she really cared so deeply about her paintings. You know what she used to say? She'd say they're her babies, and she never, ever, ever wanted to give them away. But then she did. She shared them with museums. So what I'm doing is I'm painting the opposite color, those warm colors, and I'm painting it, and you can already see the blue against the orange. Remember, they're across the street neighbors, are popping off the page. And it's hard to find, but you can be a detective and really find those little negative spaces. And remember our song, a background space is a negative space. A background space is a negative space. You have lots of different brush strokes. So you could even use your brush strokes in your negative space. As you work, think about all the different ways to use your brush. And remember, I even recommend using what? The back of your brush. If you're one of my friends who loves a good circle or dot, you can really add lots of beautiful texture. I'm gonna keep going here, and I'm gonna keep adding different types of dry brush marks on top. And I will see you here tomorrow for another artist. I'm so glad you're here. I love you, you little cookie faces. I'm so glad to see your beautiful art every day. And I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great, beautiful, sunny day.